So did you or do you see a notice on your screens? Please click.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please click got it and then that's it. Okay, so everyone, so it's nice to see all of you back in our synchronous meeting. So do you see the shared PowerPoint on your screens?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your response. So before we proceed to our lesson discussion, let's have our lesson objectives first. So what do we mean by lesson objectives? So these are the competencies that you have to that you have to master as we proceed or as we discuss everything today. Okay, so what is the first one? Okay, so number one is you have to explain, or at the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the nature of communication. Okay, so if someone asks you what is communication or what is the nature of communication, then you will be easily able to respond to that question. And last is you will be able to define communication. So in this meeting, okay, in this meeting, you will not just be able to define communication as a manner of speaking, but you will also be able to define communication extensively. Okay? So do you understand the two objectives that we have here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any question or clarification?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for responses. So let's have let's play a game first. Okay, so this game is what we call 4 picks 1 word. So are you familiar with this game, class? How many
Yes, sir.
Yes,
are
sir.
familiar with this game? Okay, very good. So all of you are familiar with this game. Now, before I proceed to the succeeding slides, let me just discuss with everyone what are the mechanics of this game. Okay, so number one, there are going to be 4 pictures that will be posted on your screens. Okay, so all those four pictures are interrelated to each other. Okay, so those 4 pictures pertain to only a single meaning or a single word. That's why it is called 4 picks 1 word. Okay, so don't worry. I made this not difficult to everyone, and actually, what do you call this? I also indicated the word that you are going to guess, but they are jumbled. Okay, so are you ready, class? Let me show a virtual clap react if you are ready. Okay, very good. What about John Mariel? Okay. So let's have the first one. You might as well write down your answers. So again, the first one to correctly guess the word, okay, will get the point. If you want to answer, you can raise your hand. Yes, Erica?
Is it understanding?
Let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, very good. Okay, so Miss Berdine got the first one correct and she gets the first point. Okay, so the first one is understanding. Next, what about this one? Yes, Jean Mariel.
Interpreting.
Okay, let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, very good. So Erica or Miss Berdine and Miss Dolom are one at peace. Okay, so J. Irene, you can make up for the next one. Okay, so what about this one? All right, yes, John Mariel.
Connecting. I don't know.
Connecting. What about you, J. Irene? What's your answer?
You're connecting then.
Okay, connecting. Let's check. Okay, connecting. Okay, so since John Mariel raised virtually her hand first, so the point goes to her. Okay, so John Mariel is already obtained 2 points while Erica is 1 and J. Irene is still at 0. Okay, so for the last one. Yes, J. Irene.
Sir, communication.
All right, communication. Okay, so did you list down all those words that you guessed? Okay, so let's go back, no? So this is the fourth one, no? Communication. This is the third one, connecting. And then the second one is interpreting. And then the first one is understanding. Okay, so excuse me. So question, class. Do all these words, okay, do all these words that were presented to you have something in common? No? Do all these words that I just presented to you have something in common?
Yes, sir.
Mhm. In what way do they have a connection? No? Mm.
Sir, I think
Yes, Jerry.
this things
Okay, so J. Irene, from our view, you are experiencing an intermittent in your internet connection. You might just type it on the chat box and then send it, and then I will just read it. Okay. So same question. So I want an answer from the others.
Sir, the chat.
Yes, Jerin.
Hello.
Sorry. So I disabled the chat box. So there you have it. You can chat now.
Okay.
You can send now a message on the chat box. What about you, Miss Berdine? Do all those words have something in common?
Yes, sir. I think they are all related in communicating.
Mm-hmm. So all those words have something in common when it comes to communication. What about you, Miss Dolom? I want to hear from you.
Kasi because all of those words are connected to communication. For us to communicate, ano, for us to communicate with other people, we need to have connection with others, and we need to be able to have a proper understanding and interpretation.
Okay, very good. That's a good one. No? Same is with J. Irene's answer. So according to Miss Moreno, there are things that we can encounter, or these are the things that we can encounter in our daily lives, especially in the aspect of communication. Now, out of those words, we will be focusing our attention on the communication. Okay, so for this day, we will be discussing everything about communication. Okay, so I am going to flash words. Okay, I'm going to flash words. So what I want you to do is you react. Okay, as soon as you read the word, as soon as you see the word, you react either a virtual thumbs up, okay, or virtual thumbs down if that said word is related to the word communication. Okay, so here's the first one, expression, thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, thumbs up, yes. Communication is a form of expression. What about this one? Motivate. Is this related to the word communication? Okay, very good. What about persuasion? Okay, thank you. Instruction. Okay, very good. What about control? Is the word control related to the word communication? Mm-hmm. So according to Ms. Tolom and Ms. Moreno, they are related to the word communication. What about you, Ms. Berdin? What's your opinion about it?
I'm not quite sure, sir.
Why? Why so?
I think control, it is something that you are the one who controlling. Like you're not communicating. You don't have
Mhm.
way of speaking.
Okay, so in other words, no, what you mean to say is control is not an aspect of communication, because when you say control, if you are going to define it technically, no, you are what? You are somehow like puppeting a person. No? Okay, is that what you meant, Miss Berdin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or in other words, manipulating someone. Okay, what about this one? Relationship. Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Okay, very good. Information. No? Mhm. And last one, message. Okay. Thank you for your responses. No. Okay, so to give you a clearer picture about these words, no, all these words here that I flashed before your screens are related or intertwined with the word communication. So when you say communication, it is already a form of expression, right? The one of the main reasons why we communicate is we want to express ourselves. We want to express our feelings. We want to express our emotions. Am I correct? Okay, thank you. So another aspect of communication is motivate. What do we mean by motivate, by the way? In one word, what do we mean by motivate? It starts with letter E and also ends in letter E. Yes, John Mariel?
Encourage.
Okay, encourage. When we say motivate, we are encouraging someone. So how do we encourage someone? Of course, through the use of communication. Okay? What about persuasion? What do we mean by the word persuasion?
Persuading.
Yes, what do we mean by persuading? We are making what? What do we
Making
persuasion?
someone to agree, something like that to us.
Okay, yes. Very good. So when we say persuasion, we are making, or through communication, we are making someone agree to what we say to them. Okay, and of course, instruction. So always remember that communication can also come in the form of instruction, just like what we're doing now. Okay. Next is control. So earlier, no, Miss Berdine was quite unsure if communication and control are synonymous or related to each other. So communication is, to answer that question, to answer that confusion, communication is also connected or related to the word controls. Okay? Because when we say control, we are regulating the behavior of someone. So through communication, we are what? We are lessening the degree of misbehavior of a person. Okay, so that's why control is synonymous or related to the word communication. Next, of course, always remember that communication fosters a relationship. Okay, when we say foster, it adopts, it creates, or it creates relationship. And same with instruction, communication can also be what? A way to send information to someone. And of course, communication in general aspect, if you're going to look at the bigger picture, it's in the form of message. Okay? So, what is communication, by the way? So, we have been discussing words that are related to communication. So, what is communication? Okay, so before I flash the definitions that I have on my PowerPoint of the word communication, I want to hear from you first. Okay? In a one-liner, what do you mean by communication? Based on your personal understanding, I am not asking for a technical definition. Who would like to speak first? Yes. Let's have Miss Berdine first because she's the first one to unmute herself. Go ahead, Miss Berdine. You are acknowledged.
In my opinion, I think communication is a process or
Okay.
interaction between the sender and the receiver. That's
Okay.
it, sir.
That's a good definition that came from you, no? So according to her, communication is a process. Okay, so later we will check if her answer or if her definition of communication is correct. Okay, so according to Ms. Moreno, communication is way to express our opinion or opinions. Yes. Okay, what about you, Ms. Dolong?
It's a way on how people can understand each other in a way, in how they want to express themselves.
Okay, so it's a form or it's a way of understanding one another. Okay, so you all have good definitions of communication. That's a good one. Okay, so let's go first to the etymology of the word communication. And when we say etymology in linguistics, it means the root, okay, the root of a word. Okay, so communication came from the Latin word communicare, meaning to share, to be in relation with, and communis, meaning sharing or imparting. Okay, so again, the etymology of the word communication came from the Latin words communicar and communis. So if you add communis and communicar, you will get communication. Okay, so if you add those two words, those two Latin words, you will get communication. So what is communication? So according to the text here, Ms. Berdine, please read it.
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of news or information.
Okay, so that is one of the many definitions of communication. It is used to impart or exchange news or information. Just like if you would go back to the list of words that I asked you, if they are interrelated to the word communication, one of them is what? Information. Communication is used to impart or exchange information. Next, Miss Miss Moreno, is your internet connection now well compared to earlier?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Please read the second one.
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other mediums.
Okay, so thank you for that, Miss Moreno. No? So if you're going to look at the first definition, it says here, it's communication is imparting or exchanging of news and information. Whereas on the second one, it is way longer compared to the first one, right? Because according to the second definition, it is not just imparting or exchanging of information. There is also stated how, no, how communication is used to impart or exchange information. And according to the second definition, it is done either by speaking, writing, or using some other mediums. And when we say medium, it is the channel. Okay, it is the form of, it is the singular form of media. Okay, so next is, Ms. Mariel, please read the last definition.
Communication media is the act or process of using words, sound, signs, or behaviors to express or exchange information or to express your ideas, thoughts, feelings, etc. to someone else.
Okay, so according to the third definition, communication is a medium or is a media, okay, that acts, okay, or process of using words, sounds, signs, or behaviors to express what? Express information or your ideas, thoughts, feelings, etc. to someone else. Okay, so if we are going to summarize all the three definitions here, what do you think is your definition of communication going to be like? Again, if you are going to summarize all the three definitions here, what is your definition of communication going to be like? since your knowledge about communication has been augmented. Hmm. How would you define now communication given all those three, no? Given those three definitions? Yes, Miss Berdin.
So my communication will, the meaning of communication for me will be it's a process or imparting or expressing rather your feelings, idea, thoughts, information by the use of different mediums.
Mhm.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, no? So again, I'm just going to reiterate what Miss Berdin said, no? So according to her, her definition of communication will be something like this, no? Communication is a process or system wherein you are using some medium, to impart or to express whatever you want to express to someone. Okay, be it your feelings, be it your emotions, be it information, be it anything. Okay, what about you, Miss Dolo? Given the three definitions here of communication, how are you now going to define communication?
Communication is something that we use to exchange information, either the use of speaking, writing, or some other mediums. It is a
Mhm.
way on how we can express our ideas, thoughts, and feelings with other people. That's it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No? So for Miss Dolom, no, her new definition of communication is it is a process, it is still a system using such medium to impart or to exchange or to express whatever still you want to express. Okay, what about you, Miss Moreno? I want to hear from you your new definition of communication given these three definitions.
Sure, I think I have the same ideas to them, but as for me, we can communicate using some other mediums for us to, again, to express our thoughts, feelings, and um, for us to communicate to others.
Mhm. Okay. So all those definitions, all those new definitions that came from you are good ones. Okay. But to augment, always remember that the main aim of communication is not just to express, but to make oneself being understood and being able to understand. So in other words, one of the many aims of communication is understanding. Always remember that. If there is no understanding on the part of both communicators, then do you think there is a communication act transpiring? Of course, there's none. Okay? So again, one of the many aims of communication is understanding. To be understood and to understand. Do you have any questions so far or is everything clear?
I
Everything
don't
is
have questions, sir.
Okay, so far, are you discombobulated or not? Are you perplexed? Are you perplexed so far with how I discuss everything?
Everything is clear, sir.
Okay, so there's no confusion on anyone's part. Okay, so next, what is the nature of communication? So have you ever wondered why you communicate? Or why is there a need for people to communicate? Have you ever thought of that question? Why do I need to communicate? Why do I have to communicate? Hmm. Have you ever thought of that question? Or has it ever struck in your mind na? No? Okay, so at this juncture, we are going to look at the nature of communication. So why do we communicate? Okay, why do people communicate? Why do we communicate? So the nature of communication goes like this. So communication, always remember, is John Mariel, please read it.
Communication is a human activity.
Okay, do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Be honest. Do you agree with that? Communication is a human activity. Are humans the only living things able to communicate? Yes or no? Are humans the only living things that are able to communicate? Because you might say that, sir, how about animals? There are also some animals that can communicate. So do you agree only the humans can communicate? Yes or no? Yes or no? Who says no? May I see a virtual raise hand? Who says no? Okay. So, so all of you raise your hand. Okay. So, why did I inject that thought? Okay? Why did I ask that question? Yes, communication is not exclusive to human beings because there are also animals that can communicate, right? Such as dogs. So how do dogs communicate? They bark, right? They wag their tails. So in other words, no, these animals, these creatures can also communicate, but not in the way that we communicate. Okay? So that is why it says here that communication is a human activity. So we are talking about the humanistic aspect or humanistic context of communication. Okay? So if someone asks you, do you agree that only humans can communicate? So what would your answer be? Would you answer yes? Or would you say no? Of course, you would say no, based from the learning that you got from the discussions. Okay? But still, it depends on the question. It depends on the context of the question. Okay? So again, communication is a human activity. Okay, you may now lower your hands, Miss Moreno and Miss Dolom. Okay, thank you. So next, Miss Moreno, please read the second one.
Communication is a complex process.
Okay, question, Miss Moreno. Why do you think that communication is a complex process?
Sir, I think for us to communicate, first we need um, the sender, and then and then the receiver, and for the receiver to what do you call this? Let's say for for them to communicate, um,
Mhm.
also the sender should also understand what he or she is telling to the receiver. So
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moreno. No? So please take note of what she said. Understand. Okay. So isn't it that understanding is one of the most complex thing that a person encounters, right? There will be times that understanding is difficult for us. And we said earlier, communication is synonymous with the word understanding. Okay, so that's why communication is a complex process. So that makes communication a complex process. Why? Because if both parties or one of the parties, now if one of the parties of the Communication Act is not able to understand or comprehend what the other party is saying to them, then communication can be taken as a disaster. Do you get it? Okay, am I still sounding sense?
Yes po,
Do I
sir.
still sound sense?
Yes
Okay,
po.
sige. So communication is a complex process. Next, Miss Berdine, are you still there?
Yes, sir. I'm having problem with my camera.
Okay. So can you please read the third one?
Communication broadly may be seen as a synonymous to behavior.
Okay, so question, how is communication may be seen as a manifestation of a behavior of a person?
I think most of the people are, it's like what you say or the way you communicate is same on who you are or what your characteristic is.
Okay. Mhm. So thank
Yeah,
you
that's
for that, Miss Berdin. What about you, Miss Dolom? How is communication may be seen as a synonymous to behavior?
It's synonymous to behavior, sir, because what we are saying is like what we are telling to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. What you are telling to yourself. What about you, Miss Moreno? I want to hear your idea about that question. Same question, huh?
Sir, I believe our behavior is also complex. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have different behavior and and I think communication is synonymous to behavior.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So are you familiar with the word adage, you are what you eat? Okay, so that adage tells that whatever the person eats is the person, or whatever that person eats is a manifestation of the character of the person. No? Okay, same is true with communication. So communication can also be a manifestation of behavior of someone. No? Most especially if, for example, you are what? You are careless. Okay, so one of your characteristic or one of your traits is being a careless person. So tendency, if you are a careless person, tendency is that you will be also what? You will also be able to communicate in a carelessly manner. That is why communication may be seen as synonymous to behavior. So always remember that you are the way you communicate. Okay, so if you are communicating with someone and you are using a lot of vulgar or foul words, then that is a manifestation of your behavior. Okay, so next. Okay, so communication may be seen as a flow of information, which is we can all agree upon. Now, communication is seen as a flow of information. Excuse me. Okay, so another thing that we can all agree upon is communication may be synonymous to interaction. Why? Because always remember, communication fosters interaction. Communication creates a relationship. Okay? So do you have questions so far? Everything is clear? Okay.
yes, sir.
Next. Another nature of communication is, Miss Berdin, please read this one.
Communication occurs between two or more people, the speaker and the receiver.
Okay, do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So communication occurs between two or more people. But do you also agree that communication can also happen in a single person?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So always remember that communication does not only occur between two or more people. Communication can also occur in oneself. Okay? So next is, of course, Miss Moreno, please read the last one.
Communication can be expressed through written or spoken word actions like non-verbal or both spoken words and non-verbal actions at the same time.
Okay, so to summarize this one, no, it says here that communication can also be expressed through written or spoken words, or a combination of spoken words, actions, and nonverbal actions at the same time. Okay, so these are the natures of communication. So again, the first one is communication is a human activity. Communication is a complex process. Communication can also be a manifestation of a person's behavior. Communication can also be seen as a flow of information. Communication can also be seen as synonymous to interaction. Communication can occur between two or more people, or communication can occur to oneself. And lastly is it can be expressed either through written or spoken, or combination of them. Okay? So always remember that people who are engaged in communication should have something in common for successful communication act to happen. Okay? So what do we mean by that? before you engage yourself to communication with someone, check if both or if both of you are or if both of you have something in common. If both of you have a common denominator. And what are those? Number 1 is language. Number 2 is knowledge. Number 3 is interest. Number 4 is experience. And number 5 is culture. Okay, so let us discuss the first one, language. Ms. Dolong, please read this one. Thank you.
Language is a very important factor for communication to transpire. Two persons who are conversing should speak the same language or dialect.
Okay, so according to the text here, first and foremost, you have to check if both of the participants in the communication act are speaking the same language. If you are on the same page, figuratively if you are on the same page and if you read the same book. Okay? Why? What would happen if both participants of the communication act do not speak the same language? What do you think would happen? Yes, Ms. Dolo.
Both of them would not understand each other.
Okay, so that is the general initial that is the general and initial answer for that question. No? Of course, if you do not speak the same language, you will not be able to arrive at an understanding. Okay, so it's not just that, no. If both or if one of the two parties are not knowledgeable about the language of the other participant in the communication acts, of course, there is no arrival at the understanding. Okay, so always make sure that before you engage yourselves in a communication act, you are speaking the same language. You are reading the same book. You are on the same page. Okay, if those requirements are met, then you have already possessed a passport to understanding. So language, again language is a critical part of communication. Okay, knowledge. Okay, the next one is knowledge. Ms. Moreno, please read this one for us. Thank you.
Knowledge is another factor that should be common to persons who are engaged in communication.
Okay, so question. So this question is not only addressed to Ms. Moreno who read the text. No? This is for everyone. Okay, so question. Why do you think that knowledge is included as another factor to be considered before engaging in a communication act? Again, the question is, why do you think that knowledge is included as one of the factors why people, before engaging in a communication, should be aware of? Yes, Ms. Moreno. Go ahead.
Sir, for me, for us to communicate, we should first know what we're going. We should first our information to our receiver.
So in other words, you should know first, or you should check first, you should check first if you have an extensive knowledge about the subject that that both participants are going to talk about. Okay, so another response? Who would like to answer the question? What about you, Miss Berdine?
Sorry, sir, I'm having trouble with my internet connection. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, so my question is, why is it that knowledge is also included as another factor to be considered before engaging in a communication act?
I think it is important to be included because you have I mean to communicate, you should have in the same page or the same knowledge what you're talking about, something like that.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that, Miss Birdie. What about you, Miss Dolom?
I think knowledge is important for the both of them to have fun, for them to understand each other in a way that they have the same comprehension,
Mhm.
something like.
Okay, so in other words, no, the very reason why knowledge is also included as another factor to consider before engaging in a communication act is for both participants to exchange information that is not that is not what do you call this, that is new to both parties. In other words, so there is an exchange of new information, okay, regarding a particular subject that they are discussing. Okay, so again, before you engage in a communication act, you should check if both or if you have an extensive knowledge about the subject or about the topic that you and the person who will talk about in the communication act. Okay, so next is interest. Okay, so when we say interest, of course, it is the drive. Okay, it is the motivation that drives both parties in the communication act to talk further about a particular subject. Okay, so when does interest fade away on the communication act? Of course, when one of the parties got lost, they got lost track on what they are talking about. Okay, so there are actually a lot of factors that can fade or that can what do you call this, that can melt, no, that can melt the interest of communicators. One of the factors is, of course, if one party is not motivated enough to be engaged in the communication act further. Okay, so interest. So check if you are interested on the communication act, because if not, then do not engage in the communication act at all. Why? Because you are just going to waste your time and energy. Okay, so next is experience. So um Miss Dolom, please read this for us. Thank you.
Experience. Having similar experience or experiences with the person we are conversing with will enable us to relate to the other person as we are familiar with what he is going through or what he went through.
Okay, so this is somehow similar to knowledge, no? So if you have an extensive knowledge about the subject that you and the person whom you are speaking to are talking about in the communication act, then you will be able to provide as many experience as you can. Okay? So experience. So if you have if you have less to no experience at all regarding the subject of your discussion, then of course you will not be able to relate. No, you will not be able to understand what you two are talking about. Okay? So last is of course culture. Miss Moreno, please read this to us. Thank you. I think Miss Moreno is experiencing
Persons who
again
are
trouble.
communicating
Okay.
should in a way have the same culture.
Okay, so the way we hear it from Miss Moreno,
Simply
she is experiencing again a trouble in her internet connection. Okay, so I will just be reading this one. No? So for culture, always remember that persons who are communicating should in a way have the same culture to facilitate comprehension of the message being transmitted. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always have, no, you always have the same culture to facilitate comprehension in the communication act. There will be instances wherein both parties have a different view on a culture, especially if they are if they come from a different culture. Okay, for example, the Catholics and the Muslims. Okay, so but in general, no, in a bigger context, as much as possible, both communicators should in a way possess possess the same culture. Okay, why? Because if both parties in the Communication Act possess the same culture, then they will be able to comprehend every message that is being transmitted to both parties. Okay? Am I clear? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so far, do my explanations, ayan. So, Miss Moreno is lost, no? So far, is my explanation clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so thank you for your feedbacks. Okay, so culture. Okay, so do you have any question? Okay, welcome back, Miss Moreno. Okay, so do you have any question or clarification?
Answer.
None. What about you, Miss Dolom? Do you have any clarification or question?
None po.
Okay, none. Okay, so do you still have your pen and paper with you? Okay, very
Yes, sir.
for this time, okay, for this time, let us have this your understanding. So I have here 5 items, okay, 5 item questions wherein you are going to write on your paper T if the statement is true and F if the statement is false. Okay, so the direction is plain and simple. Okay, so this is the first one. Mhm. So you do not have to write the entire statement, ha? Just write your answers. Okay? So this is the second one. The third one. The fourth one. And of course, the last one, the fifth one. Ms. Moreno, were you able to catch up with the assessment?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Moreno, are the 5 statements flashed on your end? Okay, so let us now answer these items. Okay, so for number one, who would like to answer it? Miss Berdine?
Yes, sir. So number one, should I read the sentence first?
Yes, please read the statement first and then followed by your answers.
Communication is a process of verbally transmitting information from one person to another. My answer is false. It can be non-verbally too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But clarification, in a general context, we are talking about communication as a whole. Okay? Because when you say verbally, it doesn't just include speaking. Verbally can also include writing. Okay? That's why the answer here should be true. Okay? So again, though your idea, Miss Berdin, is correct, communication is a process of verbal and non-verbal, okay, but still we are looking at the general context of communication. Okay, so next, Ms. Dolom, please take the second one.
Communication is a human activity. True.
Okay, correct, it is true. Okay, so I'm not going to call Ms. Moreno anymore because she might still be experiencing intermittent internet connection, no? So I will just be calling you, the two of you, no? Okay, for the third one, Ms. Berdin.
Language is one of the things communicators should not share to reach an understanding. False.
Okay, the answer is false. For the fourth one, Ms. Dolong.
Communication originated from the Latin word communis. True. True.
Two. Okay, the answer is true. Okay, last one, Ms. Berdin.
Interest does not make communication achievable. False.
Okay, let's check. Okay, very good, false. Okay, so may I know how many of you got everything correctly? May I see a virtual confetti if all of you were able to answer everything correctly? Okay, very good. Miss Dolo, what about you, Miss Berdine? Okay, if you got if you got only 4 correct answers, please send me a heart react. Okay, 4. What about you, Miss Moreno? Okay, so 4. Okay, so for our generalization part, okay, so this is what we call as 3 to 1 exit pass. So I am going to ask from you 3 things that you learned from the discussion, 2 things that you found interesting, okay, that you found interesting about the discussion or everything, no, everything that we discussed, and 1 question that you still have. Okay, so I am going to give you 5 minutes. I think 5 minutes is enough to accomplish this. So write your responses on a piece of paper and I will call one of you to read your responses about this one. Okay, so your 5 minutes starts now. So if you're done answering with everything, please send me a shock, no, shock react, shock react. So again, if you're done accomplishing everything, please send me a shock react. Okay, so thank you, Miss Dolong, for your reaction. We're just waiting for the other two, Miss Berdin and Miss Moreno. Sorry. So 2 more minutes for Miss Berdin and Miss Moreno. So again, if you are done accomplishing everything, please give me a shock react. Okay, Miss Moreno is done already, so we're just waiting for Miss Berdin. So Miss Berdin, okay, very good. So Miss Berdin is also done. Okay, so I want to hear from you your exit pass. Okay, so let's have the first one to wait. Am I lagging? Okay, so I am now the one who experiencing a intermittent or trouble in my internet connection. Okay, so let's have now the first to read her responses. Miss Berdin, since you were the last one to accomplish this one, so you will be the first one to share to us. Okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Go ahead.
Ready na po. Okay. So the three things I learned in this discussion is that what is communication is, also the nature of communication, and the last thing is what are the important things or aspect that we should remember in communicating in communication. And
Okay.
then two things I found interesting is that when you communicate,
Mhm.
I think I found interesting that you are aiming in understanding.
Okay. That's a good.
And the second one is the reason of communicating.
And for the last one, what question that you still have about the discussion?
So I have this out of the box question, not so out of the box, but I want to ask that what role do facial expressions, gestures, and poses play in communication?
Okay, that's a good question that you have, no? So next meeting we will be dealing with that. Okay. So thank you, Ms. Berdin, for your response. Next, let's have
Thank
Ms.
you.
Moreno.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, but we can. But your voice is low.
Hello?
Quite loud. Quite louder.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Moreno.
The three things I've learned is communication is essential to our daily lives, in which having our own understanding, we can comprehend with others for us to feel relatable or interested to one another. And the two things I found interesting is um, one's experiences can bring people communicate to one another, and also our different cultures can affect our communication to other culture. So I think we should be more aware of what we're trying to say to others. And my question is, how can we measure an effective communication?
Okay, so that's another good question, no? How can we measure good communication? So what are the things that can make us say a communication is a good one? Okay. So again, we will be dealing with that next meeting. What about you, Ms. Dolong?
The three things that I learned during the discussion are communication is used most of the time in our lives. It can be expressed differently, such as written and spoken words. Communication occurs with more than two people, the receivers and speaker. Two things that I found interesting is that for us to have a good communication with other people, we should have these five things in common: language, knowledge, interest, experience, and culture. Communication has its different ways, such as it can express oneself, persuade, and or motivate other people. It gives information and others. One question that I still have is, has the development of the internet and social media caused a change in the way we communicate?
That's another good, no? That's another good question that we have to ponder and respond to, no? How does communicate, or with the development of media or such as social media, how does it affect communication or the way we communicate? Okay, so with that in mind, so thank you for your participation in our generalization and overall in our discussion. So before we go on our separate ways, do you still have questions or clarifications that you have to ask me and that I have to respond to?
Answer.
None, sir.
Okay. So with that in mind, so I guess, no, not I guess, no, I will be seeing you all again next meeting. So have a great day. Okay, so you may now. Okay, so goodbye, class.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.